I'm gonna see a weird Hello and welcome to Gateway Cinema. Today we're talking about Tenet and Primer.
Me and Matt have done a bonus episode already, so if you haven't watched that, go watch that. But if you don't want to, then watch this instead. Welcome back, Ben.
Want to though? Yeah, welcome back.
Welcome back. Well, thanks for welcoming me back. Yeah, I did kind of fumble the bag, although I did have a thing for work that was due.
My dog ate my homework.
But I'm pretty happy that I ended up missing it though, because I got to hear.
It was a good episode.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, and I got to hear your thoughts on it. I thought, okay, I'm glad that I've heard it in advance because that definitely gives me some stuff to talk about. And actually, because I hadn't seen the film, well, I'd seen the film before, but because I hadn't seen it in preparation for this podcast before I watched the episode, I watched it with the things that you both mentioned in mind. And also, this was actually, I think this is the first film that we've done this podcast that I've actually watched on Blu-ray. And thankfully, a friend of mine had Tenet's 2-disc version on Blu-ray that he lent to me. And I watched the special features disc and went through every single chapter, all 13 of them. And it's actually really impressive. So I think if you want to find out how it was they did like the reverse fight scenes and whatnot, I'll try and go into it as much as I remember.
Almost don't want to know. No, you should go into it, but I almost don't want to like ruin the illusion for me because it boggles my mind so much.
Oh no, I think it makes it even more impressive.
It's surely just good choreography and also maybe like what those things that stage people have on stage where they're harnessed up, I guess harnesses and ropes and things like that to move them in unrealistic ways. It must be that.
It's not so much that, but I may as well go into it now. So, you know how you see the fights like in the normal direction of time where they're doing like the standard fighting scenes. So what they did was rather than just film it forwards and then just rewind it, what they did was that they would rewind it and then they'd get the stunt people and the actors to actually watch the footage. And so watching them being in reverse, they would then try and recreate the reverse movements. But if you like, yeah. And it wasn't just the fight coordinators. Like, there's that scene when, what's he called? Kenneth Branagh, who, by the way, thank you for pointing out that he was Professor Lockhart. I never clocked that until you guys pointed it out. And it just made his attempt at a Russian accent even funnier.
It's a weird Russian accent, isn't it? But who am I? I'm not like a judge of Russian accents. I guess it's good. Maybe it's good.
Well, I don't know. I think you can be a judge. I think if you're convinced by it, then it's good. If you're not, then maybe not so good. I think it's fun though.
If I can't have you, no one can.
We slit the hole in your throat and put your balls in the throat. But yeah, that's how they did the reverse fight scenes. And yeah, there's just so much that's really interesting about how they made Tenet, and definitely worth a watch if you ever get your hands on a special feature disc. Because I definitely learned a lot about how they did it. BTS fan?
You don't like K-pop?
No, I don't like behind the scenes stuff.
Why?
Like Matt says, you say specifically for Tenet, but I say not specifically, generally for all movies for me, it ruins the magic. I don't like knowing that there's a camera and things like this. It kind of ruins my suspension of disbelief, and I enjoy it a lot less. That's why I never try and look into how Lord of the Rings was made, even though I know it's the most incredible feat of engineering and absolute marvel of filmmaking. I never want to know how it was made because I just want to, that scene where they look into the pits where the orcs are made and they spiral out of the ground, and apparently that's all one big 3D model. I don't want to know that's a 3D model. As far as I'm concerned, that's Mordor.
Oh no, but I get what you mean about the suspension of disbelief.
Is that Mordor?
Disappearing.
I think it's Isengard.
Isengard.
Sorry, I mean Isengard there.
Isengard.
Can we retcon this, Tenet style?
But I think it is interesting to actually find out. Oh yeah, the voice. So that they're not just doing reverse voice. So Kenneth Branagh, he'd speak in a Russian accent into the recorder, they'd rewind it, and then Kenneth Branagh would then try and recreate the rewind of his Russian voice. A really weird production.
Why even do they
Exactly.
need to?
Yeah.
Why do you
I don't know.
Just
I
about
don't
to
know.
say,
They could have
They
just
just did
reversed
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. And then they tried to do some innovative thing with the IMAX cameras where they would
So
like
I'm
film
sorry,
it in
that's so
reverse
dumb.
as well.
Why?
I don't know.
Filmed
Like
in
I think
reverse.
I just think that with this film, I think Nolan thought,
He's a bit
hey, this
extra.
is a really, really cool idea. Let's just try and break film in a number of ways and just do a bunch of things that aren't necessary, but just because it's really, really fun and it's really cool and it is really impressive. And at the end of the day,
Yeah,
I
it
think it is
works.
actually really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair
Although
enough.
the film does still have some serious flaws, which we will get into, I'm sure. But first of all,
Um,
so Matt and Haroon, you both spoke about Tenet in the last episode. Um, Matt, I want to go to you first because you told me that when you watched Tenet in the cinema, you couldn't
mhm,
actually hear the audio very well, and this was a really
not
common
at all.
complaint I remember hearing at the time. Did you
I was
see
Mhm.
with
it in
my
IMAX
girlfriend. I couldn't
cinemas, or
hear a
did you see it
thing.
in a normal theatre?
I can't remember. I want to say IMAX, but it might not be. It might have just been normal.
Because I heard that one of the reasons the sound design was so off was because I think apparently the film it was designed in such a way that they were tailoring it for IMAX screens. And I think a lot
Makes
of people
sense.
were suggesting that it was because of that prioritizing of IMAX screens that they didn't take enough time to actually test it out
Make
on
it
like a
sound
smaller
nice
screen.
for 90% of screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine then it was a normal screen. I just couldn't hear a fucking word really. It was pretty persistent throughout, and I remember being very frustrated by it.
Yeah, it's really very annoying and borderline. Maybe it's arrogance
It's
or
rude.
something.
Yeah,
It's
rude
real
to
arrogance
do.
as well to double down on it too and say yeah it's supposed to be like that. Yeah, you're not supposed to hear it. It's like why are we not supposed to hear it? It's exposition. You're telling us what's happened. That's
Yeah.
how we know what's going on in your movies. You're Nolan. You can't tell a story, so it has to be
And
exposition.
and if he didn't want you to hear it, he could have written it so that it wasn't so exposition heavy. But there's so
Exactly.
much in there.
But
Like,
that's all he can
just let
do.
me hear it.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Ben. Fuck you. I hate Nolan for that. It's so annoying. He's so obnoxious in those interviews as well, being like, "Yeah, it's actually supposed to be like that." But I don't really know if I've
Oh,
watched
wait,
them
so
any
does he actually
further.
say that you're not meant to hear
He
the dialogue
says,
that well?
"Yeah, it's supposed to be like that. You're not supposed to hear the dialogue."
Okay.
Then why have so much of it, Christopher Nolan?
Why have like even in Tenet, there's not even much dialogue. It's just every bit of dialogue is very, very important in order to
Yeah.
understand the story. That's bad.
He wants his
Yeah,
butter
no,
and the money for the
dude-
butter.
Yeah. I was hoping to use that at some point this episode today. And that is so much
You're gonna
better
use
than
it every
Eat Cake and
episode.
Eat It Too.
It's
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah, like this film. Actually, before I give my thoughts, Haroon, give us your thoughts because
Yeah.
I remember. I think this was when we spoke about just films in general in our work calls. I noticed that Tenet was the one film by Nolan that I only heard praise for. Not to say that you loved it like a fanboy, but it was the only
I
thing I
think-
remember you saying positive things about.
Hold on. So as we've gone through our Christopher Nolan season here, I think I've come to appreciate a lot of Nolan's movies, and I would probably have to say my mind has been changed with regards to Tenet being, the only Nolan movie worth praise. That's not true for me anymore at all.
But would you say
but-
it used to be like before you started going through the films?
To be honest, I never really really watched them, so that belief was probably a kind of fate half.
I mean, you always liked
belief.
the Batmans.
I-
Surely.
Yeah. I like the Batman. I
Except for
liked
Dark
Tenet.
Knight.
I thought, Dark Knight Rises is bad.
Oh, I
think
think I'd
I've-
say Dark Knight's your least favorite.
That's not what I said ever.
That's not possible,
But I
really.
thought,
It's just
but
not.
but the
It's just
Dark
not something
Knight,
that would come out my mouth.
but the Dark Knight. Oh, I guess you said he was overrated. Not the
It's
same as
overrated.
least favorite.
It's all overrated. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, it's not the
Back
fourth
that
best
horse
movie ever
forever.
made.
It's not the
Yeah.
fourth best movie
Actually, it's
ever
now
to
the
be
third, I
created.
think, on IMDb. I
It-
think it's overtaken The
ridiculous.
Godfather.
Yeah, so maybe I said it was overrated.
I can get behind it overtaking The Godfather. I still think number three is too high, though.
Yeah, it's definitely not that.
Incredibly high. Maybe 30 places higher than it should be. But it's fine. I suppose maybe we'll do a little bonus episode where we like rip into the IMDb top 250 list.
Oh, we're definitely going to do that. We're definitely going to do that one day when we
I'm
have like
glad
a
you're
full
on board.
episode. Because yeah,
But anyways,
100%.
let's get back on track here. So you asked me about Tenet, how I feel about it now. I like it as a puzzle box movie. I think that just creating a really complicated thing for the sake of it and having the sole enjoyment of the movie, the audience trying to solve your problem, that's a cool thing. That can exist, and I think it's unique and to an extent. Primer also exists, and there's probably others that are a bit like it. But Tenet does it really well. The action is quite fun to watch, and yeah, it's just an incredibly, probably one of a kind. What was that, Ben?
Yeah, what happened there? You turned into a cat.
Yeah, my internet just went, but
You're back now. Where was I? What the hell was I saying? I liked it a lot. I think that time travel's never been done this way at all. And I like how, yeah, it's just super unique, different time travel. That's just cool. Really fresh. That's what it felt like.
and would you say that after rewatching it in preparation for last episode and this one, would you say that it's still your favorite Nolan film, or would you say The Prestige has pipped it by now?
No. It's definitely not my favorite Nolan film. I would say The Prestige is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie for sure so far. Yeah, I've got a lot of love for that movie. Strangely enough, yeah. What did you think of
It's a
Tenet?
good movie. Yeah, so my history with Tenet, I didn't actually watch this in the cinema because even though I would have said that I really like Christopher Nolan's films, I didn't like him enough at that point to go and see his films regardless of what they were. And I remember a friend of mine, a friend of the show actually, Joe, who was on a couple of episodes ago. He saw the trailer, like he knew the concept, and he thought, yeah, can't wait to watch Tenet. And he tried to get a bunch of us to go, and he asked me if he wanted to go to the cinema. And I remember as soon as he said time travel, I just thought, I'm out. Like I do like Doctor Who and that sort of stuff, but I just find that when one-off films do time travel, I just don't care for it for some reason. And anyway, didn't bother going to watch it in the cinema, but then ended up watching it a few years later. I think it was just on Netflix, and I. So when I saw it the first time, I remember thinking I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I did like it. But I do remember thinking at the end of it, I have no idea whatever the hell went on and was going on. But I think it was one of those films that, despite how confused I was, I thought it had a lot going for it, which I think was able to make up for that complete lack of coherence regarding the plot. Like, I remember always thinking that the score was excellent. Special effects, as always, I think with Nolan's works because of how much he wants to rely on real life practical effects over CG when he can, were just amazing. And yeah, I just remember thinking it was a really enjoyable film. And then I watched it, I think, no less than 6 months later, and again, really
Yeah,
enjoyed it. And
that's
I think I
something that.
even enjoyed it more than the first time, which I think is actually really strange considering how short a space of time it was between both viewings. And in a weird way, I think actually viewing this the third time, I think this might have been 6 months after the second viewing actually. So I might have seen this like three times in the space of 1 year, and I liked it even more this time round. Maybe partly because I saw the special features disc, so I had a better idea of how they were doing this stuff, and I thought it just made it even cooler. But I think viewing this film, I definitely have a better understanding of how the whole like entropy thing works, and the fact that, like you said, they're going back in time, But it wasn't until the second viewing that I actually realised by going back in time, they're literally traveling backwards in time, like reverse direction. Unlike, say, when Doctor Who, like he gets in his TARDIS, goes backwards, but then once he's actually back in time, he's out in the past. He's going in the same direction of
Yeah,
travel as the people
they
of the past.
they have
Whereas this
to
one is
take
just so
their
different
time to
because
go
everything's
back.
in reverse.
Yeah. Yeah, so with Robert Pattinson being the child at the end, if he is the child, which like all the fans are under the impression that it would be, and it would make perfect sense for it to be so, but I just don't know why Nolan, he has this thing where he rejects fan theories even though they work perfectly, and maybe he seems to have intended them, and he just doesn't like any extra thinking into it. Like, what was the thing with Michael Caine and Inception? This is such a reach, but maybe if anyone could get this.
Oh,
Michael
well,
Caine.
so Michael Caine is on
Oh.
record for saying that wherever Michael Caine is in the film, that's reality.
Yeah.
And that's something that Nolan told Michael Caine, because I think Michael Caine himself was a little bit confused on set, and I think he asked Nolan for clarification. Yeah.
And then did he later deny that?
I don't know Nolan's response to that, but something that I have heard Nolan say is that I think he likes leaving stuff open ended. Like he likes the fact at the end of Inception, the audience can, if you like, choose. Oh, he's still in the dream, or he's actually in reality.
But that's meaningless though, isn't it?
I mean, I personally don't like open endings. I'd rather they just, end it. And yeah, I mean, with Inception, I've always thought he's in reality. I mean, yeah, the spinny thing's taking a while to drop, but I think it will eventually drop.
Do you see
Well, he
how it's
doesn't
a very
care.
facile ending there? Like, do you see how maybe if you were maybe 14 in school and the spinning top spun, and then you're like, oh my god, are we still in reality? Do you see his very like childish grasp at something rich and deep there?
I don't think it is childish though, because
Is it not
when I see
really?
that scene, not really. Like he just ends it that
Sorry
way.
for berating
and-
you here, but
No,
it's
it's
been
fine.
ages
It's
since
fine.
I've berated you about Nolan, and I'm feeling feisty today.
Well, I guess you got a taste of it in the last episode, didn't you? So
Yeah,
so-
I missed my taste of whatever. Go on.
yeah. No, I don't think it's childish. I I just think he ends it that way. I mean, I can't think of any other directors who give open endings on top of my head, but I doubt Nolan's the only one.
David Lynch.
And funnily enough, David Lynch, yeah.
Like, in terms of puzzle
Yeah,
box
he's
movies,
mega
I wanted
guilty
to
for
bring
it.
this up. Guilty.
Yeah. I don't like
Um,
David Lynch, as you can tell.
I've only seen a couple of David Lynch movies, but that's more so what I think of when I think of puzzle boxes. Like, for me, Tenet isn't a puzzle box because the second you watch it with subtitles, it's just like, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. Like, there's nothing to solve in it beyond understanding the
The mechanics of the
Are you
time
still
travel.
not
Yeah,
really
exactly.
confused?
Yeah, sure.
Are you still really confused though? Because on the third viewing, and I literally had like my notepad right here, and I've got like 3 pages of notes that I was making notes on, and like it got to the scene in the airport. You know when Robbie P and JD have gone backwards in time. Yeah, I call him Robbie P. It's just better than Rob Pattinson. And Elizabeth Debicki, they're in the container, and then like they're back at the back of the airport, and they're going back into the turnstile, and when they're leaving in the ambulance, and then as they're leaving in the ambulance, you see their past selves like reversing into the crates. Like when I saw that, I remember just pausing and thinking, "Hang on a minute." Like I clearly don't understand this entropy stuff because it's still not sinking in. Because I was really
Yeah,
surprised when I saw that.
I agree that is the confusing aspect, is like the mechanics of the whole thing, and like
The mechanics of free
being-
will, incorporating free will into predetermined reality is impossible. It's a paradox.
but it's
It doesn't
not really
exist.
free.
We do
will.
have free will, and if they saw themselves coming out of that turnstile, they could, with their free will, say, "All right, we'll not go in, and we'll see what happens."
Well, then
But
it's
they
sort of
always
saying
go
that there
because
isn't free
everything's
will.
always set. Yeah, that's what Nolan is, I guess, saying. But there is free will in our world, so that's a different reality that
Well,
they're
like
living
there's
in.
a well, people don't believe we have free will. Some people.
Why am I saying that it wouldn't be a different reality? They have time travel and they're going back in
Yeah.
time and doing whoop, 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 whoop. So yeah, I guess maybe it isn't. I don't know what I'm saying.
Just
Sorry,
on that free
Matt,
will point,
continue.
there were some scenes. So obviously it's really exposition heavy, but there were some scenes where I thought it it was so forced that I think it really stood like a sore thumb. And the first of them for me was when JD is in Barbara's office and she's teaching him about the mechanics of the reverse entropy stuff,
Hmm.
and she's telling about all of that. And obviously you see this for the first time, and you've got a whole bunch of questions. And of all the questions he asks, he says, "What about free will?" I'm thinking, like, really? Like, you're a special ops agent and you're asking about free will? Like, I get if you're like a philosophy grad, but why are you
No,
asking
no,
about
no.
this?
Him asking about free will is perfectly reasonable for anyone,
Yeah,
regardless of
fully.
whether or not he's an
But the
operative.
situation he's in, like he's a special ops agent, he's thinking, what about
He's
free
just
will?
found out about fucking time travel, like reverse time travel, right in front of him. He would just be like, "Oh my god, what about free will?" Because that would affect the mechanics of everything, wouldn't it? Like I just
I
said.
don't buy it. Like of all the things that
What's not to
But that
buy?
is like
buy?
fundamentally baked into the film is the idea that you have to do what you're predetermined to do.
Yeah,
It needs to come
we're
up.
on a
I just
set, which is weird though, isn't it? Because
I just didn't buy it in that one
I'm trying to
moment.
remember
Like you
that.
see this bullet being reversed, and when I heard that question, I just thought, "Oh Jesus, that does not come across as realistic." But you two thought it actually was realistic.
I mean, I don't remember that, but
Could I just
I'm
piggyback off of the previous podcast that me and Matt did, and I'll try and I just have had an interesting thought here. So, with regards to the concept of free will and how everything is predetermined and our fates are set, and having that be what's very baked into the movie, as well as the fact that humanity is doomed to destroy itself as it does in the future, isn't everything always set and is how it always will be sort of completely against the idea that humans are able to change their fate with regards to the apocalyptic global warming?
well. I was thinking about this as well when we were discussing this. I think that they don't know the future still, so they know that the future is attacking them, but they don't know how that goes. So it sort of is just like the moral obligation to do what you need to do in order to
To
prevent.
survive.
Yeah. So they don't know that the future wins in destroying them, and they don't know that their future is doomed. But they have to. They just have to
try
do it.
anyway. They have to do
Yeah.
it, yeah, because that's what's always
Ignorance is their
happened.
ammunition, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ignorance is our ammunition is an interesting concept. The one thing I did grasp on the recent viewing was the fact that they couldn't write anything down. They can't send any emails because that always exists into the ether, and the future will have that immediately, and then tell Kenneth Branagh to go and attack them, but go back in time and do the pincer movement. I've already talked about all this. I kind of stretched. I feel some sort of fatigue with Tenet right now.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, so I've disagreed with you two. Well, actually, I'm not sure if you hold this view, Matt, but I know that Haroon, you definitely hold this idea that
What's this?
Nolan lacks heart, and I
Yeah.
don't think that's the case with many of his films. I genuinely don't. Like, there are quite a few of his films. Well, I say quite a few. Like Interstellar, easily one of the films that makes me cry the most.
That's his
Cry
Dark Knight Rises.
most emotional film,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and but
100%.
like not just one of Nolan's most emotional films, but I think one of the most emotional films that I've seen. And
That's
so I think
crazy.
I think the Batman films can be.
I'm
Hey, you
trying
said
to
your
nod my
dad
head.
also cries when Matthew
Yeah,
McConaughey's
it's
scene of
that's a
Dawson-
sad
Master of
scene, and
Swords.
it's an emotional film, but one of the most.
Yeah, with Nolan's films, I think he has a lot of heart, but this film, I think, is an exception to that rule, and I think Oppenheimer as well, actually, which will be interesting once we eventually get onto it. But with this film in particular, I think this is the one that probably has the least heart out of all of them. And I think you both mentioned in
That's
the
definitely
previous
true.
episode that you didn't feel anything for the characters, and I can't say I felt anything either. Like absolutely nothing.
Yeah, not
Pretty
really. It'd be
much
hard to.
nothing at all.
I mean, you feel
Concept
bad
and
for the
puzzle
woman
box
who's
movie.
in an abusive relationship.
So, as well, like, same problem that I have with all of his films. Just a bit of colour would be nice. Let's see a bit of colour.
Yeah,
I like a bit of colour. Black and white, and
As
then
in colourful
all I know
characters?
it's very grey.
No, as in, like,
Oh no,
I would
I
like
think the
some
colour in this
colours.
film is like when they're on the Amalfi Coast. I think that's really nice.
Yeah.
It just yeah. There's no. I get it though, but there's no like vibrance or It's not
He's
a fun
so scared
looking
of
movie.
vibrance.
Yeah. I'd say I like the way the Prestige looks probably the most in terms of like color palette and it just works well. It's like it's sort of
You guys say it's
grimy,
pretty
but
similar though.
what do you mean?
As in not very colourful.
The Prestige.
Memento's his, like, best stylistic movie, isn't it? In my opinion.
Sure, but yeah, the Prestige. I don't know. It's not colorful, but it's a
It's got
nicer.
such a cool style. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of browns, a lot of like blues and blacks. Like there's just a lot more. I mean, it's pretty colorful as well in the theater scenes, as it would be. I don't know. I like it the most visually.
I think there is a lot of colour in Tenet. Like I think when they're on the Amalfi Coast in particular.
It looks like a car advert, like like an Audi
Yeah, I-
driving
I-
through France.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
could get
got-
behind that. To be fair,
It's sort of that vibe.
I
It's
mean, it
very
is
clinical.
Yeah, and I think it does feel very much like a Bond film, especially when they're
Yeah,
on the
it
coast.
fully feels like a Bond film. It really
Yeah.
does.
Which
I
just
get that
reminds
vibe
me
a lot.
that it's such a shame that he's not going to be directing the next Bond films. So I think that
I'm
was
They're
so
so
happy he's not doing
stupid.
them.
Him
Although-
and Danny Boyle wanted to do a Bond film, and
What-
Danny Boyle almost had it, and they were just like, "No, you have to make it more boring." Like they just won't let him have any creative control. Like,
Yeah, I heard
Christopher
that was the
Nolan.
reason why Nolan didn't get it either.
yeah,
he always
just
wants
let
some
him do.
creative
What,
control.
what the fuck are they talking about? Let Christopher Nolan do his Bond film. What do you?
Yeah.
You guys don't know
But
anything.
I think I heard that if he was going to do Bond, he wouldn't just set it in the modern day. He actually would take it back to when the novels were written,
Yeah,
like
that's
Ian
sick as
Fleming's
well.
time to the
I don't know why they don't
1950s.
do
I think
that.
that'd be, yeah, I think that'd be really cool. Actually, going back in time and
Yeah,
looking at the source material,
it seems
like
obvious.
for it to be like a proper Cold War film. I think
Mm.
that'd be awesome for them to do. But yeah, unfortunately, not for the next two films anyway. Any more thoughts on Tenet?
I have some notes that I've got down for Tenet, but yeah, talk and I'll try to find my notes.
I just wanted to go against the puzzle box thing again because the more I think about it, just the more I completely disagree. Because I
Okay,
just don't
that's
think
fine.
that's what a puzzle box is. Because again, you don't really have to search for the answer. Because it doesn't pose any questions. It's just a series of events that is a bit technically hard to wrap your brain around. And in that sense, sure, but a puzzle box to me is like it shows you a series of events that are somewhat hard to connect and find the narrative in, like David Lynch. Like, here's some other examples. I'll just keep going with David Lynch. I don't know. I mean, J.J. Abrams does his little puzzle box thing. It's not that I'm saying J.J. Abrams
he?
is good.
I've only
Yeah,
seen
he
Star
always
Trek
goes on
Star Wars
about it.
films.
He it's like his whole philosophy on filmmaking is I can't remember. He's got a TED talk about it. It's fucking lame as hell. He's like, when I was a little boy, I got this puzzle box and I didn't know I was inside it. And so that was his like filmmaking philosophy. It's like you pose a bunch of questions and don't answer them, which is why you get
Okay.
just like the Force Awakens, which is just set up, set up, set up, set up. Not my problem anymore. Like,
Well, to be fair, that was Disney's fault because they went with Ryan Johnson rather than having
what
continuity.
and made the best one of the three. Ryan Johnson
Oh,
did so well with all those setups.
I agree. I agree with you on that one, by the way.
Wait, hang on. What were we talking about? Which
Uh,
one?
Well,
Last
we were somehow
Jedi.
segued on to episode
Oh, The
8,
Last
Last
Jedi,
Jedi being the
right.
best of the sequel trilogy. Yeah, I
And then that's
completely
why-
agree with that.
And that's why episode 9's so bad, because J.J. Abrams can't answer the questions that he likes to pose.
Yeah, they had to reverse course.
Yeah, fucking
Yeah.
cowardly fucking idiots. Anyway, that's a
Yeah.
discussion for another day.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
They just decided, let's not even make a sequel to The Last Jedi. They're just like, let's pretend that didn't happen. fucking idiots.
Well, it's because
Um,
the fans just had
yeah, they're
such a
morons.
huge amount of backlash. Yeah, like I can't remember how many people signed it, but there was a petition to remove that film from the canon of Star
God, Star
Wars.
Wars fans, I
They're
just wish
fucking
I like
idiots.
they're so weird, man. They're
Stupid.
such weird
Star
people.
Wars sucks. I was watching Andor. I did this whole rant to Haroon. I
Yeah.
was watching Andor, and every conversation was like, so Flibbity
No,
Flip went to the
Andor's good.
Jibbity system and got the Floobity Flambity from the Ploopity Alliance, and it's just like, just it's
Everybody
just
has a
so
Columbus.
fucking. Everyone has a Plumbus. It's that. It's
So,
oh
so
my,
you
it pisses
don't
me off.
like Andor? Because I've heard
I
from
liked
people
it.
who
He does
don't like Star
Andor.
Wars typically.
It's good. You can't
Oh,
not
you
like
do? Okay.
Andor. It's just
I
good.
I like it. I would just like it more if it wasn't gibberish. Everyone has a stupid name. They used to be called Luke and Ben and Leia. They used to have normal names, and now everyone's, clip lap. Have you seen the fucking?
That's alienist.
There's
You're
a
gonna get absolutely cancelled when aliens come down and they're all called clip clop bling blong.
there's a viral
This clip
tweet
will
of
play
like
you.
Star Wars fans when Glup Shito walks in the room, and that's just every fucking Star Wars property since like 2015.
I don't mind the names. I think that Star Wars is. I think at its core there is something absolutely wrong with it. Like really something right down to its roots. There's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
Purely
Wow,
because
that's serious.
there are basically in terms of movies, there's 2 Star Wars movies that are very, very good.
Yeah,
And
like
the
undeniably
rest
goated.
are not very, very good. There are only
Yeah.
2 undeniably goated Star Wars movies, and that is A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and everyone can agree with that. We can all hold our hands in solidarity when we say that those are the 2 best. And everything
Rogue
else
One, I
is
think, is
no
also very good.
more. No,
Rogue One
no,
sucked. I
no,
fucking
it
hate
fucking
Rogue
sucks. Because the thing
It's
is,
shit.
what happened to you, Ben, is what happened to me when I don't know if any of you have watched Jumper. It's actually got Anakin
No.
Skywalker in it. And
I've
anyways,
heard of it.
basically,
It's got a really
I've
good
seen-
ending, and then that's all you
Christian-
remember.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes. Hayden Christensen can teleport, and Samuel Jackson is hunting him down, and it feels like. Anyways, the ending is spectacular and it's really cool. Viewers, go watch the last 20 minutes of Jumper. It's about teleportation. That's all you need to know. And it's enjoyable. But basically, Rogue One is the exact same thing. The last 20 minutes are fantastic, and it completely convinces you that the entire thing was good, when in reality, it's basically
I
a
back
3
it.
out of 10 movie until the best 30 minutes that any Star Wars movie has. And
Yeah,
those
the
last
last
30
battle
minutes
is
are fucking
carries.
good, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're
for sure.
really good. I think
Okay, I'll
seeing
need to
Darth
rewatch
Vader
it, because
in
I
the
haven't
dark
seen
and
it
that fucking
for-
lightsaber just comes out like zoom, and then he just tears them all to pieces.
Oh, that's a cool scene.
And then
Yeah.
and then that really it's just really amazing storyboarding, I guess, of the plans being transferred from all of those rebels on the ship, trying to get the plans just away from Vader.
Yeah.
And how
yeah.
everything
Good
just happens
tense
just in time.
moment.
It's just really well done. This is not a take at all in the slightest. We all like this. And yeah, no, that's my thoughts on Rogue One. It's just nowhere near a 7 though. It's probably like a 6 or maybe a high 5.
Does anyone have any more thoughts on Tenet? Haroon, you said you had some notes. And then I
Okay,
said
so
about puzzle
what I
Bus, and then we
thought
talk about
on
Star Wars.
Andor. So my thoughts on Andor. Anyways, no, I won't do that. More notes on Tenet. Yeah, I do have one. There was like a joke that made me laugh. And she's like, "Oh, we went on a holiday for 9 million," and he's like, "Where'd you go? Mars."
Oh yeah.
Just is.
Well,
He's
what
funny
about
in this
yoga?
movie.
He is
What about
funny.
yoga when JD's doing the in the room?
Oh
And
yeah,
he's
that's
just like,
funny.
yoga.
Did you win the breath holding game when the halide gas enters? The
Oh
room?
yeah, I did. Yeah, because
Yeah,
as
I
soon as
won
it
that
started, I
too.
realised, oh yeah, Haru mentioned this, so I rewound it and then started again.
You rewound it and tried again.
Yeah, I actually wanted to see
Fair
it. It was
enough.
actually fine, but I bet you it would have been harder if I was actually having to run around, like pick a lock. But yeah,
Oh,
it was
true,
actually
true,
pretty
true.
straightforward.
No, you're dead right. Not a fair
Maybe
test,
double
really.
the time just to give it a fair test. Um,
We'll just jump
I'm on
up and
board with
down and
that.
walk about.
But honestly, like third time watching this film, I think I like this film the most after watching it third viewing versus
What do
like
you think, Ben,
second or third.
on Matt's take that this is a movie about climate change and how humans will destroy the
It's
world
not about
and we
climate
need to go
change.
back and change things? Sorry, not climate change, but the apocalypse.
Capitalism.
Capitalism. Sorry, yes,
So
capitalism. Late
I
stage
don't think
capitalism.
it's about that. I think this is just a standard spy movie with the second law of thermodynamics injected into it. And at the very, very end, you suddenly find out the motivation from people from the future is XYZ, where they talk about the oceans rising and the rivers
Just
drying
doesn't
up.
matter.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I
Just
think
doesn't.
because the way I try and so
Come on,
I
Ben.
think
Let's destroy him.
so I think if anybody tells me
Join
that a
me.
film is a
Do it.
if anyone tells me that a film is about X, what I try and ask is, well, like the evidence that's being cited that it is about X, if that changed and if it was something else, would it be a completely different film? So let's say that in the future, rather than
Okay.
I don't know, rather than the oceans drying up, it ends up being because of economic trade
Aliens.
wars, for example. Like let's say it's about that,
Well,
and
no.
like nationalist
Unfortunately,
governments rising up. I would
yeah.
I would
Unfortunately,
then well, what I was going to say was, let's say it is revealed to be that at the end when Kenneth Branagh's on the phone to him. That really wouldn't change the film very much at all. And I think with that in mind, like Nolan needs to find a motivation for people in the future. Um, like we keep hearing about these predictions, the Earth is cooking and will be over in what 2 3 decades. I don't even know what the latest thing is, but like you keep hearing things like that. Seems like an appropriate thing to put in a film, but I don't think it is primarily about that. I think he just needed a motivation for people in the future, and he thought, "I'll go for that."
is
That's
it
my thinking.
necessary to explore the gravity of the consequences of a theme in order for a movie to truly uh, encourage the audience to feel a certain way,
Uh, can you
such that that
elaborate on
film
that?
sort of actually touches you on an emotional level?
Oh, it doesn't touch me emotionally. But you're saying,
You
like,
need
does a
to
film
explore a
need to?
theme in order for that theme to touch you on an emotional level. If the theme is barely explored whatsoever,
Oh,
then the movie is
But
very
it
barely
doesn't
about
have to
that
be
theme.
emotional though. Why does it have to be emotional? Like it
Okay,
can be
what
uh
about okay, in what other sense then?
like just a I don't want to say intellectual, but like it doesn't have to be emotional. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the it serves the function. I'm trying to. I'm lost here. I don't know. You keep going. I'll try word this better in my head.
like, I don't think it does need to be emotional. I just think it needs to play a bigger part in the film because the
Yeah,
whole
that's
conflict
what I mean,
revolves
basically.
around between like JD and Sator, pretty much. I'm just going to call him JD rather than the protagonist, it's just shorter.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, like I think it just revolves
TP.
around that. He's JP. No,
TP. No, TP.
no, TP.
Ben, tell
Yeah,
me to
the
clean my room.
protagonist.
No,
Oh, bloody
could do
hell.
TP. Nah, no. GD staying. That's not staying. Okay, so
Sorry,
I
not
think
beautiful.
I think
Fuck that
uh
I
guy.
spoke
yeah.
with Tommy Robinson. He's a nice guy.
He's a
Yeah, I like
hero.
when he says there are a lot of young men. I see a lot of them crying for
Wow.
me.
Holy
Oh,
fuck. That was good.
thanks. Thanks. I need prime
Sorry,
myself
Ben, you
on
were saying something.
impressions. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think it is basically just it's just a spy film, and in the what's I going to say? In the special features, Nolan does talk about that he wanted to do something similar to the spy genre to what he did with the heist movie in Inception. He wants to provide a fresh take on it if he was going to do it. And I think he does provide a really fresh take on this, to be fair, because I don't think it's ever been done before. I'm not sure if we're ever going to see something like this again because I think if there's one thing that I learned from the special features, it is that it's really hard to integrate a law of physics that is not at all intuitive into a film. And there's no way they would have been able to do this without the many years of experience working on films and the all the funding they had behind them because of all the clout he built up. And yeah, I just can't see this sort of thing happening again. Um, but yeah, it's a base. I don't want to say it's a basic spy film, but I think it's basically a spy film with that injected into it. It's a really really cool product at the end of it. Um, but I don't think it really has any. I don't even know if there is a theme
Product
to
is
it.
the
I
right
think
word.
yeah, but I don't mean that in a disparaging way. Like
I
I
do.
guess what I mean at the end is like it is a very cool looking
So sorry.
thing. Like it's really cool. I mean, I think if I describe Tenet in one word, it's cool. It's really really cool. But yeah, beyond that, there's not much I can really say about it. Um,
I mean,
but yeah,
like I said last time, I do agree that it was probably the idea, the concepts came first, but I just saw so much of what I discussed in the last episode in there. I'm not going to go into it all again, but it's definitely in there. He was definitely thinking about these things, and I find it a very
It came
interesting.
up.
I just find it a very interesting motivation, and it's definitely reflecting on some sort of philosophy.
It comes up with the suits and the classism, and Sator being a billionaire that wants to have everything, and it comes up as the future want to kill the past, right? Those are sort of like the three sort of pillars at which your argument stands
Sure.
on, essentially.
Hmm.
And yeah, fine, it's there, but this is probably more of a talk on like film theory, if you will, like maybe more deep film theory, and actually like the literary analysis of the movie, which maybe I'm not really geared for. But like I
think
said
the
in
point
the
about it.
previous podcast, sorry to interrupt you, Ben, but if you want to explore themes like this, it feels like you've got to explore them if you want to explore them, like in the Matrix, where that whole thing is very, very clear and in your face
I'd
constantly.
rather it's in
and
it
there's
than there's nothing, though. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather there is the
or at
sprinklings
least
of
it's
these
there.
ideas than it is just completely nothing and is about nothing. Like, I just respect that he had some questions, some societal gripes to put in the film, and I just think
I
they're
would say it's
undeniably
not
in there.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but you
I
can't. You
think
can
So
just
better it be
yeah.
there than nothing be there, and it
I
be
think your point
shallow.
about it. I think your point about it revealing something philosophical about him is true. I just don't think the film is. I don't think it's centered around that. I don't think like that is the theme of the film.
Yeah,
I
It's
think
not
the
like
fact that
Don't Look
Nolan
Up where
chose to
it's
make that
like,
guy the villain.
yeah, it's not. I don't think it's telling us how to like. I mean, like the Nolan quote that we read out last week, the really stupid Nolan quote about why politics in movies is wrong.
Oof.
It's not trying to tell you what to think. It's just baked into it. I'm sure it's his personal views on stuff baked in there. Did he write the script?
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I
Let me
think
Google.
I think he's been the only person who's written the script since Interstellar.
Did only he write that? That's not that long.
No, he did write it.
Fair, fair, fair. Um,
Yeah, no, I think it's I think the fact that he chose to make that guy the villain, like it's revealing something about Nolan's philosophy. Whether I'd say Nolan is anti-capitalism, I wouldn't say that he is because like if you look
you
at
don't have to
Batman,
be
I think this was
wholly
mentioned last
anti.
time.
I wouldn't say you have to be wholly anti-capitalism to critique it in your film, though. We all see the problems that are coming of, greed over everything else. But that doesn't mean all of us are anti-capitalist. it's just late stage capitalism
I
is
wouldn't.
has some very specific problems that I generally think we all can identify.
I don't know. I just think I think with his films, I wouldn't say he's doing anything political with them. I think it's more like kind of lost some train of thought here.
You can say
But I
something
guess it
about the
does.
Batmans.
Yeah, like the fact that he depicts Bruce Wayne. He's a millionaire. He's a hero.
Billionaire.
But at no point do I think he's saying like all millionaires are great. And I think it's the same with Sato. I don't think he's saying all billionaires are terrible. I think it's just because I think with Sato, he's somebody who's had to buy his way into the intelligence services. He's only able to do that because he's got a lot of money, and their services are corrupt. And I think it's also revealing as well that he's not. It's not like he's a standard capitalist. Like it's not as if he's a tech entrepreneur or I don't know somebody who starts out with a family business and then rose it through the decades.
Sort
Like
of
he's not
reverse
into
generational wealth.
who is
Because
Sato.
he got given a bunch of shit from the future when he was young, and he locked into that job. Or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
So
kind of.
he got his foundational wealth off that, and then I guess became an arms dealer.
Yeah. So it's a weird one because like he's not your sort of standard capitalist. Like he's just your kind of high wheeling gangster. But again, like I wouldn't like. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking that the character of Sator was really done to get the wheels of the plot to move in the sense that he needed
It's
somebody who could buy his way
all
into
done
power.
like that. It's all
Yeah, and I
done
was
like
going to
that.
say this
All of
integrates to
these
what you said before about
themes,
Nolan.
every single part of it, like thematically speaking, is only just to keep the plot moving. It's all just a catalyst here and a catalyst there to keep you engaged and to make it not a completely whatever, like almost a non-fiction movie.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like it is. I think this is the closest thing to a non-fiction film that I've seen from Nolan. I don't know if he's done any documentaries, but I mean, if he hasn't, there's probably
It
a closest
literally
thing
is like
to
a demo. It's a
non-fiction.
demo of what if
Yeah,
the world could be like this. Wouldn't this is how things would look, and this is how military operate. Like it's a military operation demo, as if like if this technology was in fact possible, this is how you could use it in the army.
Oh, by the way, how cool was that final battle? Where you see the buildings
Yeah, I
exploding
like
and
all that as
everything.
well.
Sick.
Oh, it's so cool. That's the thing. It's just cool. It's just a cool film. It just hasn't got very much going for it beyond that. But it is really cool. I really like watching it, and I'm sure I'll love it even more on the fourth watch and more on the fifth watch.
Like mark my words. I may never watch this movie again. I probably
Really?
will
I think
never
I
see
will.
this. I don't think there's any.
I definitely
maybe
will.
in like maybe when I'm like 50 and I think back to this podcast, I'm like, ah, yeah, that happened. I'll give this a watch again. Why not? Show my
Next.
kids. My kids will hate me. What was that?
Yeah.
Why did you show us that? Can I go back to my 5D glasses, please, where I can play with Avatar? Avatar. Jake,
They
sorry.
might make
Cut that.
two Tenet 2.
Tenet 2.
Two Tenet
Oh.
2.
2 Tenet 2. It would have to be.
It
But
would
2
have to be.
is kind of asymmetric a bit, so that's annoying.
That's right. What about Roman numerals? There you go.
Yeah, just the two eyes. And
Aye, Tenet, aye.
Aye, Tenet, aye. Alright, goodbye, Tenet, goodbye. Right, hello, Primer. So,
Yeah, let's go into Primer.
Ben, talk Primer.
Okay, so I'm just gonna get my notes up, and they really aren't
Yeah.
that much. So
It's a couple
Yeah, so
movies
at the
that we all
beginning-
fucking hate.
okay, so I will admit, at the beginning, I was actually intrigued. Like you have these four guys working in a garage. You don't know what they're working on, but it's clearly something
get
they're really passionate about.
phosphorine
They're
onto
working
the
on it
ionized
outside of
back.
work hours, and it's clearly something they want to keep secretive. And I think that was a good hook for me. Like it was pretty intriguing, and I like the whole. I don't know about you two, but I think the whole premise of like amateur gentleman scientists, I think it's a pretty cool one generally. But
It fits
Yeah,
done
beyond
well,
that-
yeah. The dialogue is ridiculous in that first 30 minutes. It's
Yeah.
absurd. It's literally just science word, science word, science word, science word, science word, science word for 30
Yeah,
minutes.
Shouting over each
yeah, and
other.
Can you just
it
do
was
time
bad.
travel?
It was bad, but oddly enough, I thought the
It's
first 30
appalling.
minutes were actually probably the best because again, I
Not
think
the
even
best.
though they were talking
That
over
that
each
was
other a
my
lot.
least favorite part of the film.
Oh,
I
see,
think
for
it gets
me, it was when they
way better as
started.
it goes.
Is it was when they started to go back in time, and again, I just didn't understand what was happening. And even though you could argue, well, you said the same thing about Tenet. At least with Tenet, you have spectacle. You have a really cool score. It's shot really nicely.
Okay, okay, okay.
I don't think Primer had any of these saving
So,
graces. Yes, it was a low budget film, so I appreciate that it's not as if this was the fault of the creators. Like if you're on low budget, you're on low budget. But yeah, for me, I just found that once they started using the machine, I just got really really bored.
yeah,
What was that?
so I was going to ask sort of how you go into this movie, what mindset you have, your prerequisite mindset. Do you not give it a lot of leeway because of its low budget and basically made by a couple of non-movie makers and non-actors and non-cameramen and non-cinematographers,
Yeah,
written by a
I would
hobbyist
say
story writer?
yeah, I would say that I did, but the problem was that the problems I had with the film, it was something that I think was avoidable because I think ultimately it comes down to the writing, like what they're trying to do with the machine and the time travel, and the fact that it was just really hard to grapple with.
Mm.
And so if they try to do special effects like say an explosion, I'm not going to poo-poo them if they can't do a good-looking explosion. But if what you've done is something that is avoidable, regardless of the budget you're on, like the writing, then I'm less sympathetic. But you said they were non-movie makers, so have they never made a movie since
I
this
don't
He's
know.
one?
made
Actually, I kind
two.
of
He's
made that
made
up.
one or two since. It's the main actor is the writer director. He's
The blonde
cancelled
guy.
though. He's no, the brown haired guy. Um.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like an abusive guy, and I think he can't really do anything anymore. Um. So he like had some mad controversies, but he did make another film called Upstream Color, which I think probably had a significantly higher budget and also is pretty liked generally. I haven't seen it, and I think it's another complex mindfucky movie. But yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was. I think I don't. Yeah, he Haroon, you googled this. He was like an engineer or something. He did other stuff and knows about other stuff, and then was like, "Fuck it, I'm making a movie," basically. And you can tell. And I do think I agree that there's big flaws in the writing. It's very obnoxious. I find it very obtuse. That's pretty much the only note I wrote. Is like it wants to be smarter than you, but also hide how not actually smart it is by having everyone shout over each other and just talk a bunch of fucking like techno babble. Um, but I do think it's pretty cool, and it being only 7,000 is something, and I like it the more as it goes along. So the initial setup, I'm like, yeah, whatever, who gives a fuck? They're just shouting over each other. I'm like, we need to get the what was the gas? I don't fucking know. Argon.
Halide
Uh,
gas. We need the argon gas as
yeah.
an
Argon.
That's just all.
inert.
But I guess a bit exciting when they start making the machine and they start realizing what's going on, and then I like when they start figuring out they can go back in time and how to do it, and they got some funny lines, like I mentioned in the last one, where he's like, "I haven't eaten since later this afternoon." I find that all funny, and the sort of double crossing at the end, I do find very cool, albeit a bit hard to follow. But I'd say I liked this a lot more than I did initially when I watched it a few years ago, where I just didn't know what the fuck was
So,
going on.
so what led you to watch it a few years ago? It wasn't a uni assignment, was it?
No, I was just chilling in my room. I'd heard about it. It was on Amazon. I was like, all right, let's see what this is. I didn't. I don't think I even knew it was about time travel, and I just couldn't follow it. I was just like, they're all just talking. I barely think I even clocked that it was about time travel, but
That's funny.
I would have been heavily inebriated while watching. Um, I was just like, okay, that was a weird film, and I didn't really think about it, and I just remember it being like the obnoxiousness of it. Like I said, it was my main takeaway, and just the reason I picked these two films is because I found them both the same amount of obtuse in like it wants to confuse you and not give you the information you need in order to get it.
I don't think that's fair. I think
But
it
I agree on
completely.
rewatch, both of them explain enough. They do, but you just need
Yeah.
to watch it again with subtitles and
It,
Yeah,
shit.
again,
you can't understand either of them on a first viewing. No way.
puzzle
Yeah,
box movie. Fun to solve. Satisfaction of solving. Nothing more than that.
sort of. It's hard going into this discussion now, fully understanding it on a second watch, like without really even having to like research it after, because it's so obvious now. But it's crazy that it can be so confusing on the first watch, and I feel like, am I stupid? Like, it,
So yeah, that's the funny thing about solving a puzzle. It's like when you when I play quite a lot of chess, and so there are chess puzzles, and it's so confusing when you start. It's like, how possibly is there any advantage here? How could there be? And then, because the board can be very big at times, and there are, like in a number of difficult puzzles, naturally there are a lot of possibilities, combinations, and opportunities. And then when you just see that like extra move, and then the next move, and the next correct move, it's like two moves, and the whole thing is solved, and it's super obvious in
yeah, it's like
hindsight. But when you
recontextualizes
start,
everything.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense, I suppose.
it's just that.
Yeah, the once you get most of the confusing stuff definitely happens at the end, and they don't explain. Oh, he's gone back again, and he's gone back again. You sort of just have to figure it out. Like when he goes and
Yeah,
sees him on the bench, and they've had that conversation earlier, and but we know that the blonde guy has gone back to this, but we don't know that the new guy is. I don't know. I guess it does just take a couple watches to fully grasp it because it isn't Nolaning the exposition the whole time. But yeah. Did you guys like the pairing of them? Do you get why? I really thought I was gonna hate them both, so I'm glad I didn't.
No, I understand where you paired them. Um, I mean, I definitely couldn't think of an indie film that would also do time travel, and I guess
Yeah,
this.
very similar time travel as well. They both end at the start. Like,
I mean, you asked before the about it being an indie film and how much leeway I was giving it, and I would say I do give more leeway than a really high budget film. But I was actually one
it's
thing that
something like
I
30,000 times the budget. Tenet's 30,000 times more expensive than Primer, which is crazy.
oh wow, okay. But then again, I think it's worth every penny because I think Tenet, for me at least, is so much more enjoyable than
Hmm.
Primer. But yeah, with Primer, I think the fact that it was an indie film, I wanted to focus on little things like the editing. I wanted to, when I was watching it, make like be conscious of when they were cutting, like why they were like trying to work out why they were cutting. Why do they include some sounds, not others? Like when they're all speaking over each other. For some reason, they also included the sound of the wife washing up the dishes, and it was really
Hmm.
loud. I was wondering, like, okay, what's the you know creative choice behind that? Is that to stress that he's got a wife, or is it because he simply didn't have like good enough equipment to
Those
actually take
wife
out the noise?
characters were so fucking flimsy as well. Like, they're very, very
Yeah, they got
underwritten.
pretty
I
much
didn't know.
no.
Yeah, couldn't
Yeah,
even later on when they were like, "Oh, it's that person's dad." I'm just like, which one was that? Like, there's
yeah.
just no care about any of these characters. Um, that
And
was
they
me
mentioned the
putting that in.
ex-boyfriend, and I thought, hang on, what? Like, who's ex-boyfriend? And then they said, oh, okay, that one. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I really, I didn't care very much for this film at all, which is a shame because I think it did actually hook me, which seems to be the opposite of you, because I actually was intrigued by what they were doing in the garage and what they were creating. And to be honest, I think the point at which I started to become bored, it was literally when they went to it was when they went to that complex, and the blonde guy says, "Oh yeah, I did this earlier," and then they look at the binoculars and they sit and you see the blonde guy from the past going in. It was
Mm-hmm.
pretty much from that point onwards they started to do all the exposition stuff that I started to become really bored because at that point it just I completely lost it. I just lost the plot, and yeah, I think from that point onwards there was just nothing keeping me there to actually
Yeah.
enjoy it. Is there anything else to say about Primer? Should we wrap it up?
I have very
Um.
little else to say about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I
I had
think
one
it's cool to
thing.
watch on a low budget. Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, just I liked it thematically to look into how having this tool would unravel and lead into these temptations. Like I find that quite a realistic thing of like, oh, let's go back and make myself cool at this party and like, let's go make ourselves rich. So I like that. I think it's got some good ideas. And I think the budget helps a lot for me to find something to appreciate. And I liked it way more than I expected I was going to. But yeah, it's nowhere near a perfect movie technically and like, you know, thematically, emotionally. It's just a pretty nice idea that a guy had, and I find it kind of inspiring that he was able to make it on such a low amount of money. I think there's some good shots in there, like when it's filming the machine. There's a lot of those shots where I'm like, this looks cool, and yeah, I respect it, but I don't respect the man who made it.
Yeah, I second those thoughts. And here's to never having to watch Primer or Tenet again. Hey,
Yeah, I'll watch Tenet again, but yeah, Paramount, I won't watch that again.
Yeah,
I'll watch
definitely
it
watching
in.
Tenet again.
I'll watch it when I'm a bit younger.
Nice.
So, speaking of watching films again, next week we have Dark Knight on the horizon,
Yep, we're doing it.
and accompanied by
Well, I'm not 100% on this, but someone in real life told me that a lot of the dynamic between the jokester and John Batman himself is somewhat based on a film called. Let me get it back up. I forgot what it is.
The Lone Star.
No, 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 the other one. In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood and John Malkovich. And so I guess we'll do that unless off camera we come up with something better. We didn't do numbers. So wait, you said I'm going first. Tenet. I'm gonna have to confer. Is that right? Is that the right word? I'm gonna have to check my letterbox to make sure I got this right. Okay, Tenet. I've got 4 star, 8 out of 10, possibly 9 out of 10 because I do like it a lot. I might go up to 9 out of 10 maybe one day. I had a lot of fun watching it. Uh, but for now, 8. I've also got Primer as 8. But that would probably go down to a 7, just comparatively speaking. I think it's worse than Tenet. But 4 star seems fair to me. So both 8 out of 10. Both might go up. One might go up. One might go down.
Stop. Just stop. Just stop. That's enough of you. All right. Okay. So a Tenet's a 7, and Prime is a 6. That's it. That's it from me. Ben, go on.
Tenet is, I think, an 8. And I think
It's
one of the
not.
reasons why it goes up to an 8 is because it just gets better with each review. Primer, like it's a low budget. It got made. This is a really, really soft review. I'm going to give it a 4,
Better than
but
Taxi Driver. Better
it
than
could
Come and
well be
See.
lower.
Better
As
than
in, I enjoyed.
everything.
Oh no, no, that can't be right. Because if I gave Taxi Driver a
Oh,
3, nah, fuck
oh,
that. I'm not.
that's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, fuck that. It's less than that.
So
Yeah,
one.
thanks for reminding me. I
It's
can't.
gotta be
I
a
can't
one.
put it higher than Taxi Driver.
Taxi
Because as much as I didn't
Driver.
like Taxi Driver, there was at least stuff in Taxi Driver that
Endless
deserves
stuff.
credit.
Lots
This,
of stuff.
yeah, this is a 2. This is a 2.
Oh, cat.
Oh, nice cat.
It's my cat making a cameo.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.